Hello, everyone. We are just waiting till 11 to get started here. Let people join the meeting.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're at the top of the hour. I'm sure there'll be some people jumping in here as we go, but we are recording it, so feel free to watch it, after it gets posted. So thanks everyone for joining. This is the first webinar in a new series that we're kicking off around XenTegra Managed Services, and the topic on hand today is disaster recovery and disaster recovery as a service by XenTegra and partnering with Nutanix. So I'm Trevor Mansell. I lead up our managed services business here at XenTegra. I'm joining from Philadelphia today from a hotel room. I'm doing some having some customer meetings up here today, but I'm normally based out of the northern suburbs of Atlanta. But we really appreciate everybody joining. We also have on the call here today, we've got we're lucky enough to have two super talented folks, Brian Clark from XenTegra, Chief Architect, and also Jason Burns from Nutanix. But because I'm not introducing you very well, I want you guys to do a quick intro and tell us where you're connecting in from today.
I'll take it first. Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, so my name is Jason Burns, and I'm the Director of Tech Marketing at Nutanix. I focus on all of Nutanix cloud infrastructure, but really specialize in networking and security for these past few years. And I'm dialed in from Durham, North Carolina.
Thanks, Jason. I'm Brian Clark. I'm the Chief Architect and Technology Officer for XenTegra Managed Services. I'm in charge of implementing Nutanix services and building services around them and giving those services to our customers. I am with Trevor, based out of the Atlanta area. Nice and sunny here.
Yeah, well, I think I was just telling Jason, we've got the well, I'm on the 43rd floor, and it just looks like smoke outside. So I guess we're getting the Canadians, fire smoke down here. All right, so okay, we got intro. You changed that. So just on the agenda on tap today. So we're gonna talk about the why initially, why we're even having this conversation. I'll cover that, and then talk a little bit about the the problem and what we're doing at XenTegra with Nutanix about it. And then we'll do a double click down with Brian and Jason on the solution and the platform, kind of digging in there. So, and while we're going along here, just we have the Q&A set for the end, but feel free to jump in there and put something in the chat. Yeah, that is, we want to keep it as conversational as as you'd like it. So, all right. So diving in here, so kind of it's pretty self-explanatory. I think DR is, I think everybody knows they need it, they want it, but it's a good reminder to see really how much it can cost businesses, in some instances put them out of business, if they don't have a really good DR strategy and a business continuity strategy. So like Gardner has it at 300,000 per hour as an average cost of business. I mean, obviously it's a stat that, depending on your size of your business, what you do and how you do it, it's obviously going to vary, but reality is we all do business, we use technology to conduct our businesses. There's very few that don't anymore. And when we can't, it really impacts the business. So I think a big thing to point out here is like, there's the traditional things we think about when DR, that we need DR for, like power outages, natural disasters, all those kind of things. But, ransomware and security events are probably top, the most top of mind thing these days. And having a DR strategy is super critical. Not only is it checking boxes for when you go out to buy insurance, but also those security questionnaires that everybody gets. And they're asking, what is your DR plan? They want to see your DR plan. They want to see that you tested it, during the year. So, yeah. So, Brian, you want to do a click through? So, and when we talk about DR, I think these conversations tend to revolve a lot of times, especially, well, with the infrastructure team, anyways. It's about replication and recovery, and that is a super important element of a DR strategy. But it is just one component, and the reality is DR is hard, and I think we can all, if you've ever had to, put it in place, you realize that it is a lot more than, the hard part is not the replication and recovery part. It's the, it's the networking around it. It's dealing with distributed environments, legacy applications, and things that make it very difficult to meet an RTO or an RPO requirement, right? So, and then, but from a high level, I mean, how we see it as XenTegra, it's about the end user being able to access their apps and data when an event occurs, right? So that ultimately is that's when the RTO is achieved. It's not when that I can, bring up a application server and have it powered up. That's great, but it doesn't meet the practical need, right? So that's what, and when we get into the DR as a service, I mean, it's a turnkey solution, and the ultimate goal is that. And so we'll dive into some of the challenges that make it hard to do that sometimes, but we've got some really good, solutions for the majority of people to address. So, Ron, I think I'll hand it over to you to kind of start diving into the platform and start talking about what we're doing about it. So.
Thanks, Trevor. So let's talk about it from an infrastructure perspective, right? When we talk about DR, we have to talk about all of these different solutions that we've packaged up so we can deliver our applications to our end users. And if you've been doing DR for as long as I have, right, back in the day, you would have physical servers that you would need to make sure are identical on both sides, so you don't encounter weird things like driver issues when you're trying to keep data in sync across multiple data centers. With the advent of virtualization, now we have VMs that abstract all that, making it a lot easier. But as infrastructure developments continue to progress, now we have things like file and block storage that we need to think about, object storage. File services is huge, right? Everyone has got that map drive that you've got to be able to access across the world. And nowadays, with the advent of Docker and Kubernetes, containerization is huge, right? So we've made all this progress for how we deliver these applications from an infrastructure perspective. But one thing really hasn't changed that much, and that's the network, right? All of these wonderful tools and creations that we have all operate on that exact same network, right? That the OSI model hasn't really changed, right? There's not a whole lot of progress there. And so there's a lot of limitations in how we can deploy these technologies. And that's really where software-defined networking has come up. So Jason, would you do us the kind of just describe what's the problem with the network?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was tasked with trying to build a hybrid cloud application here for Nutanix. And I always thought that this was going to be in the realm of folks who just had CCIEs, right? I was like, okay, wow, I've got to figure out how to configure my physical router and maybe VRFs on-prem. And then how do I set that up with BGP and maybe physical VPNs? And then I've got to talk to entirely separate teams again on the VPN side and the firewall side. So for each of these areas, the routing, the connectivity, and the security, at a large enough organization, you might be dealing with entirely separate teams, and you might have to deal with different physical devices from different vendors. So the skill set and the scope for configuring physical networking to make a hybrid cloud application or even disaster recovery between sites, it's a huge scope and a huge challenge. In my experience, this is what I had found was slowing down a lot of DR deployments or hybrid cloud deployments.
Awesome. All right. So how did you get around that and fix that for the application you were trying to build?
Yeah, so for me, I thought that virtual networking is really what made this easy. I was able to pretty much myself, with a little bit of help from some small teams, set up VPCs, which are a cloud-like construct to encapsulate a network, set up my own networks, do my own NAT, all with virtual networking or software-defined networking solutions. So that was a great way to handle the routing and addressing side. And then on the connectivity side, I was really happy to also see that the major cloud providers and even Nutanix on-prem solutions have solutions for VPN and BGP advertisement, which same story there. In just a few clicks, I'm able to advertise the addressing and then set up secure tunnels between these different remote locations. And now, I've said something that the security team really, they start to step in and care when they start hearing words like this. They say, oh, you're connecting these two different locations. How do you secure that?
Yeah.
Well, again, that's also a software-defined networking function. You can have security at your virtual private cloud with stateless policies, or now you can even turn on stateful microsegmentation so that you can be assured that your traffic is only getting where it's supposed to go, and you're limiting the exposure for these multi-tenant critical networks that you're bridging across these sites.
Okay, so something that's really interesting are VPCs. Could you dive into what a VPC is and what makes it unique from a software-defined networking perspective?
Yeah. So from my perspective, VPCs have saved me a lot of time. In my past life, I maintained spreadsheets of IP addresses, different spreadsheets for different functions. I don't know if there's some network folks out there. You probably still have these spreadsheets. With VPCs, it really made my life easier. So if I've got a new tenant, say customer 1 or customer 2 that I'm onboarding, I can bring them into a VPC. And that virtual private cloud is an entirely isolated routing domain with its own set of addresses. So here we've shown that customer 1 and customer 2 have actually overlapping IP addresses. And a VPC makes that possible through the overlay networking and encapsulation and maintaining that address table inside the hypervisor. So as far as your physical network is concerned, these tenants won't cross a boundary there. And then again, in your virtual network, even if these two VMs happen to be running on the same hypervisor, they get entirely isolated network spaces there as well. So that's the multi-tenancy part of the VPC. It makes it really appealing. Now, the other,
So Jason,
go ahead.
Jason, so this is really, very much like AWS or Azure GPC, right?
Yeah.
What would you, is there anything that you would say that's different than those type of constructs that, going out and clicking and creating a new network within those cloud tenants?
No, it's a great observation. So our model for this was AWS VPCs. It was the model that took over the world. You go into Amazon, you provision an instance, everything's inside a VPC. And you may have different workloads in different VPCs and connect them together. So it's a very analogous model. You make your VPC, you create your subnets inside of it, and then the scope of this VPC is all of the Nutanix clusters connected to a single Prism Central. So your VPC could span your entire availability zone, say. You could have a data center wide VPC, for example.
Wow. So I think outside of DR, it's also good to consider VPCs for everyday use, right? You could have your production apps and your test apps on the exact same subnet because you can have overlapping IPs. And I say the exact same subnet, they're just really using the same IP schema. But that makes very, very quantitative testing, right? We know things are as apples to apples as they can be.
Testing, you could use that as a private restore network, for example, for disaster recovery. And my favorite use case is we spin these up automatically through APIs. So we launch a number of these instances that we use for different test environments. And when we start the test, we make the VPC, we put the things inside of it. And when we're done, we delete the items, we delete the VPC. So it's a great way to get automation. And you could provision this with APIs yourself, but there are also infrastructure as code providers like Terraform, where you could, or even Ansible, where you could provision these VPCs dynamically as part of an infrastructure as code automation.
Very cool. Just actually a couple of weeks ago, we had a customer have a security event and we needed to secure some data from a compromised virtual machine. And we just plopped it right into a VPC, just locked down what it could and couldn't talk to from that VPC, and we're able to access the data without having any kind of compromise to the rest of the network. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling, knowing that inside the VPC, there's no default route. So if you don't specify it, it's going to be totally isolated. So you'll have to actually open up that default route in the VPC the way that it is today. So it's a great way for secure environments.
Excellent. So let's keep going here. And so at XenTegra, you have quite a few different options of leveraging VPCs from Flow Virtual Networking and Nutanix. We're huge fans of Nutanix. As a Nutanix champion partner, we want you to use it everywhere. It makes infrastructure management very, very easy, from wanting to put it in your data center across town for healthcare organizations that need something like metro availability, to DRing it yourself with Nutanix NC2 in the public cloud. Works beautifully in Azure and AWS. The VPCs are exactly the same. And then finally, really what I hope everyone is here for is our disaster recovery as a service. So even outside of doing it yourself or doing it in public cloud, there's still a lot of check boxes you need to have for disaster recovery. Trevor alluded to them early on, but XenTegra has some unique offerings that couple with Flow and VPCs to really deliver something that I think is powerful and convenient for our customers. And so with Nutanix, we've also partnered with companies like Cisco and Fortinet to truly deliver a white glove, multi-tenant disaster recovery as a service solution. So as Jason had alluded to, VPCs are their own entity of a layer 3 routing domain, which allows them to repeat that IP space as many times as you want. We've coupled that with the Fortinet VDOM technology to broaden the scope of what you can do with discrete level 3 layer routing. So it allows us to multi-tenant customers, and it allows us to bring in other services outside of the VPC. So a very popular concept would be that I want to have multiple sites across the United States with IPsec tunnels or SD-WAN connecting all of those sites. And I want to access workloads, something like a domain controller that's serving DNS. within the VPC. And the VDOM is the secret sauce that makes all that happen. At XenTegra, it's not shown on this specific diagram, but we actually provide you two VDOMs. There is an internal VDOM and an external VDOM. And we extend that one more layer by allowing you to do layer 3 functions at the WAN, things like BGP or SD-WAN between different sites, or even something simple like client SSL VPN into the external VDOM, which routes to an internal VDOM, which talks to a VPC, seamlessly providing application access. All the while, you don't have to worry about what the IP schema is inside of the VPC. So,
Brian, I had a question for you there. So you mentioned a lot of these VDOMs as a Fortinet construct. I'm an old Cisco guy, so what would be the equivalent for me to think about this?
just the good old-fashioned VRF, right? It's just a virtualized firewall. I would call it, and our network architect isn't here, so it's just a route table in a box. Is what I like to call it.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
But the power is that you get the full suite of routing, right? You want to do OSPF, you want to do BGP. It's more than just static flavors. So with all of this power, we want to provide the white glove service, right? We want to give you all the functionality that you would normally have in your own data center, and we want to wrap it up in a nice bow and make sure that it's carefree and effortless for you. So let's just skip ahead here. So what is included with our DRaaS service? Well, from the top, the most important thing I think people are actually caring about these days is documentation, right? Trevor alluded to this earlier. Everyone, I know there's all of us have to fill out these cybersecurity reports. When are you doing the test? Is it being documented? What are the results? How often are you doing it? Is that information up to date? And we take care of that for our customers, right? We schedule the failover. We make sure that hey, are these all the VMs you want to back up? Are you backing up or restoring and replicating like files, objects, backups, Kubernetes? All of these things, all these different wonderful technologies you can run on Nutanix platform, we test them all, right? And we provide the feedback and the results for that in the documentation. So when you get those wonderful audits from legal or security, you can just poof, here's the document. We're on the ball here. So that is automatically included. So the nice part about Nutanix, it's really engineering focused first, and I mean that from like some systems are just very difficult to run, and Nutanix makes it very easy. So we are able to extend that kind of concept to our customers and say, hey, Nutanix provides us real-time RPO analysis. It's letting us know if we'll be able to replicate those machines on time and on schedule, and we provide that to the customer, which is huge, right? Like a lot of bare bones functionality just says, is it doing it? Is it not doing it? We want to make sure that it's doing it the way it's supposed to be doing it. So that's huge. And so I think a lot of people also have the dissuadement to not really officially fail over test, right? Like move my workloads, take an outage, right? To do a planned failover is an outage. Do we have that management? No. So we offer sandbox testing as well, right? We can spin up your workloads in an entirely different VPC that doesn't have a static route, log into the virtual machine, check a database. When was the last transaction written? Are we keeping all the replication up to date? Is it truly replicating the data that it's supposed to, right? And we get the receipts. And then finally,
Brian, that's awesome. I mean, I know I recommend this to all of my customers that they should definitely test their backups, test the failover. So I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, do VPCs factor into that at all somehow?
Oh yeah, they as you mentioned, if we create that new VPC and it doesn't have a default route, right? Because we don't want a lot of workloads phone home to the mothership and the internet, right? And it's going to see, well, I've already just phoned home from the production data centers. We make sure 9 times out of 10, if not more, the VPC for failovers or for sandbox testing don't have a static route or default route out.
Hey, Brian, I think Jason has a question. He's wondering what happened to all the letters on the front of these Nutanix nodes.
Oh, I didn't even realize you used that picture. Yeah, so you'll see later on in the presentation that we are serious Nutanix partners, and And we like to rebrand our Nutanix nodes a little bit, just a little bit. We share some letters and names, so it makes it kind of easy for us to rebrand. But that's a marvelous
We're gonna
work
get a
there.
We're gonna get a letter from, Nutanix marketing, cease and desist.
I won't tell them, guys.
No worries.
I appreciate it, Jason.
Right. So then the final thing that people want with the DR is custom runbooks, and not just like, how do I power on my virtual machines? That isn't even custom in the Nutanix world. They give you a wonderful GUI to tell you, hey, I want my domain controllers to be powered on before my SQL servers. And we're talking actual scripts being ran, executing workflows outside of the Nutanix. If you need to run a Python script to do some Linux world stuff, or run PowerShell, which is really what I'm more comfortable with, or even run something like a web API hook to update your external DNS, right? You can do all of that from custom runbooks within Nutanix. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly easy to use. So let's talk about how we put all this together, right? So hopefully, if you know who XenTegra is, you know that we are a very, very big Citrix shop. The best Citrix guys, let's just be real here. All right, so it's our bread and butter. We've been doing it forever, and a lot of our customers have VDI or session hosts that they need their users to access because they get their applications through Citrix. And Citrix actually makes DR very easy from their perspective if you've got the infrastructure behind it. And actually, Citrix and Nutanix are like peanut butter and jelly these days, right? The integrations are tight. The analytics and the logging is very powerful between both platforms, and they're working hand in hand to make this easier for admins and easier for users. So what's common when we do a Citrix deployment for disaster recovery on Nutanix? Well, there are a couple of different kinds of VPCs, but the VPCs that we use are no nats, and that allows traffic to flow very freely without any kind of weird natting and weird route table kind of stuff. So essentially, with Citrix Cloud, the VDAs, the VDI boxes, they phone home to Citrix, right? So it doesn't matter. They don't need to talk to an internal NetScaler, but they can. And NetScalers can live in VPCs and work just fine. We do that all day, every day. But the idea here is really zero trust, right? So the Citrix boxes phone home to Citrix Cloud, and the user logs in over here. And it doesn't matter where the VDA lives, right? We just replicate it wherever it needs to do. And because it just phones home to Citrix Cloud, the user logs into Citrix Cloud and brokers a desktop as normal, completely seamless.
Brian, I sort of think of that like a reverse proxy. Is that right?
That is absolutely a great way to think about it. The internal IP address and really the internal WAN, so to speak, like wherever I'm logging in from, is inconsequential because everything phones home to a third party or a reverse proxy. And from there, all the sessions are brokered.
Yeah,
So,
I see a lot of my customers asking me, how do I fail a workload over from one site to another and then still bring my traffic in? Do I have to update load balancers or DNS? It sounds like this is a pretty good solution, though, for that.
it gets rid of all of that. Absolutely, right? Let a third party handle all of that. Now, if you're a big enterprise shop, we absolutely can do all the big boy stuff too, right? Fortinet is wonderful for BGP. If we want to fail over your address space into us, XenTegra owns our own public address space. We have our own ASNs. We can peer review all day. And we do, right? And because we're such a big Citrix shop, we have our own on-premise Citrix NetScalers that we host GSLB for our customers, right? And we get, sub 10 millisecond failovers between data centers. That's something that we're super comfortable with, and we can replicate for our customers if you don't want to use our hosted services. But we can do all of this, and it's all powered through VPC. And we have customers that don't use Citrix at all, right? There's, as much to our chagrin, they're still accessing everything through SSL VPN. Again, we put the URL behind the load balancer, and they don't know if they're hitting your data center or ours, right? It's entirely seamless to the user. So that's really what makes the platform so powerful, is that it's really just a couple of clicks for the admin, and the user doesn't know, and that's really what we're shooting for. So Trevor, I know that people are, okay, Brian, this is all really good to be true, but I've been at super massive and complicated to get to, and you know, it's cost $1 million, and you know, how hard is this to do? Can you talk a little bit about how easy it is with us?
Yeah, no, I mean, so here's the reality here. We've got, there's a great solution, whether, and yeah, we're kind of focusing on the turnkey DR as as a service, but the reality is that we deploy this, from as a as a consultant to into organizations as well. So it really comes down to what your business desires and needs. And but when it comes to the DR as a service, it's turnkey. And I think the question is that a lot of people would have is, okay, well, what is, you know, it's going to be more expensive because you're doing it and not and we're not doing it potentially. I think that goes through, will be the initial question. But the big thing to think about here is that secondary data center, right? How much does it cost me to run that data center? How much is it costing me to, to purchase the equipment, the software, the circuits, the network, all, obviously HA and redundant um, and secure it, do the lifecycle management on it. If you add that all up, there's a lot. And I think, if you're someone that is running a secondary data center today, you can relate. So that's the cool thing about what we're doing here is we're basically providing you, you know, that this in a turnkey solution, right? So, and this allows you to be, whether you're in a public cloud. Typically, our customers are hybrid. I think that's the highest percent, right? They have a primary data center. They either have a secondary colo, or they're leveraging a public cloud of some sort, right? So we're able to, we're able to basically take this. We price it out as a, per based on workload and bandwidth tier. So we would scope that out. And part of this, as we talked about earlier, it's white glove. So we're gonna, part of that onboarding is building out your DR plan. And ultimately it's going to be outcome based, right? So it's not about just setting it up and letting you replicate, like, and so that's a key part. So that initial onboarding is really about making sure that we're addressing all the networking components, making sure that we've got, if you've got a handful of web servers over in your production, when you fail over that, and there's public addresses that they're hitting, that we're load balancing those addresses, during that failover. So the run books that come with this, all this it's turnkey. And I think, the value, whether it's the dollar value, it's, you're saving a lot of money and resources, going this route. So,
Trevor, do you mind
I think,
diving into what customers have seen with it? I know right now you're in Philadelphia and you're all over the place, man, all day, every day. And you talk to a lot of people, a lot of our customers that use it. Can you just share a little bit about what they like about it?
yeah, I think the big thing is that we're coming in with a flexible, a pretty flexible solution. So typically, this is obviously a Nutanix native to native solution, right? So if you're a Nutanix customer, if you're going to do, sign up for this service, you're already a Nutanix customer. So whether that wherever you're running that. So the fact that they love it because it's native to native, there's no translation going on between another third-party software. The simplicity with VPCs, not having to re-IP workloads, it really makes everybody feel a whole lot better. And it's a lot easier to make the magic happen, right? I think the other things that people, why we're doing this in the first place is, our ability to handle things like Nutanix files, objects. Hey, I've got GPU workloads, whether those are server GPU or you're doing VDI with GPU. Like those are things that we have the flexibility and support for. And so and like we said before, like you can check a box with DR, but then when it gets into, oh, I've got files over here, does your solution support that? I've got GPU over here. Well, I'm doing it to public cloud. I can't actually run that GPU workload, or I can't fail it over the way within the RPO or RTO that I need, right? So it's all in the details, obviously, but I think that's what customers really like is the flexibility. That I know that's what I like about it, just for our own internal IT. Security standards, are being able to handle all those, and security is such a big one. It's networking and then all the security rules, bringing those over into my DR, right? So, and not having to rebuild those on the fly during a DR, runbook type session. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to hit on what that looks like, what's brought to the table from a Fortinet perspective, or I don't know, we need to defer that to the network folks, but.
Well, I'll tell you this, that a lot of customers we bring in, they don't have anything. And coming to us with next generation firewalls, now having the ability to actually firewall east-west traffic is huge. And we've converted customers that only used us from disaster recovery to full-fledged hosting, right? Hosting as a service, our infrastructure as a service, because you get a lot of bang for your buck, right? I mean, a lot of people, more than half the customers that I encounter don't have east-west firewalls. And now with the ability to use flow microsegmentation and flow security with flow VPCs, it's just, the cherry on top.
Yeah, and Citrix Cloud, obviously, I think we've got a lot of customers that leverage Citrix Cloud, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I think, there's VMware, their cloud platform service. You name, other EUC platform services out there. There's a handful. It gives you the ability to, a real simplicity when it comes to DR. So Citrix has always been. I used to, back in the day, I did some white papers around with NetApp around DR and Citrix. This was before Citrix Cloud, and it's always been the easier part of DR because of the flexibility of the solution. But I think with Citrix Cloud and what we put together here, it just really makes it makes the RTO and RPO super achievable. And so, yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited. Our customers are excited. I think they come into it, ready for the battle. But, I think some of these things we mentioned really help to alleviate the pains of getting to the ultimate outcome. So,
Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, just cover off here, like, business objectives, being achieved here, like it's, hey, I don't have to redesign my network for this. I don't, it's turnkey. So ultimately, if you're doing an ROI around this, it's going to pay. It's going to be a lot cheaper than having, doing it yourself. You're going to be able to meet your compliance a lot easier. You're not going to have to get that pit in your stomach when you go to fill out those forms and realize that, hey, I know I have a DR plan. There is a document somewhere, but we haven't successfully tested it, in a while. And so that's when people are like, yeah, and I get it, right? It's hard. DR is hard. So let's be fair. So this solution, what we're finding with our customers with this, it's just simplifying what, the whole challenge there. So, yeah, no, I think we can move on to the next one here.
Awesome. So Jason, all of this really depends on Nutanix and particularly, flow networking. Can you share a little bit on Nutanix's commitment to flow to really virtualize networking as a whole. And then can you share with us anything coming down the pipe?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that our customers are looking for virtual network solutions, right? And so Flow Virtual Networking offers us VPCs to take care of that. And we're integrating more and more services on top of VPCs. So recently, the Nutanix Files offering actually has support for running inside of a VPC natively. Previous to that, we enabled our Calm or NCM self-service so that it can deploy workloads inside VPCs and set up a VPC tunnel. So you can actually manage those VPC workloads from Nutanix Calm, and it creates a small reverse proxy inside the VPC itself. And then on top of that, we've also just recently announced that we have support for microsegmentation inside of our VPCs. And we'll be expanding that at scale over time. So Brian, what you're going to see moving forward is more workloads and more scope for the virtual networking and VPC offering.
So real quick, I know we've mentioned microsegmentation, a bunch of different times now. Can you just give me like a 30-second overview of what microseg is, if you can, and how that integrates with Flow VPC?
Yeah, I might be able to do it even faster. So if you take a look at what you have in a traditional VPC, you can create rules between subnets, which means you only have security when you're going through a router at the top of the VPC. But things that might be in the same subnet, by default, they wouldn't get any security. So two VMs sitting right next to each other in the same network segment, adding security rules between them, that is the microsegmentation piece. So the ability to say, hey, at this particular VM to this other VM, even in the same subnet, I'll have these stateful security policies that block or control traffic between them. So that's microsegmentation.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think about that from we VLAN all of our workloads anyway. But just to provide a little context on how powerful that can really be, it's not uncommon for us to have customers that have grown significantly. They've gone from 50 people to 1,000 people, and their infrastructure didn't go with them. So they have kind of what I would like to describe as less than ideal, network design, right? We've got customers that have everything on a single flat VLAN.
We like to call those the kitchen sink network. Exactly. And that's where microsegmentation really can come in to help. So sure, certainly you didn't intend to have the web servers and the database servers in the same network, but you want to make sure that only one port is open between them. Microsegmentation can help. It also helps enforce more of the zero trust architecture. So part of that is ensuring that only the traffic you explicitly allow is the traffic that gets through.
And I know that sounds very painful, having to whitelist everything, guys, but it's going to be the future, and Nutanix makes it a lot easier than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, that's
Brian,
where tools like logging,
Brian,
auditing, this, and visualization make it easier to see what's happening. Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
No, I was just saying, what's harder than that is dealing with a security incident, right? And then you're going to do it anyways, right? They're going to go, okay, we're deploying microsegmentation. So I think I know you have experience with that. So, hey, we haven't really, we talked a little bit around security. I mean, this is a big part of a security strategy. And, XenTegra, we've got a security team, practice and team, and some really talented folks. And I think, this is, and that microsegmentation part is really the people that want to take it to the next level. I mean, with all this ransomware out there, it's just, I mean, if you've lived through it at all, there's extra work to be done, but ultimately you're going to end up doing it anyways.
So Trevor, on the security note, do you want to let people know that they can have confidence in us, and if this isn't just hosted in your basement?
Yeah, great, Brian. So So XenTegra Cloud is absolutely enterprise grade, designed for enterprise customers, right? And so that being the case, we partner with people like, you know, Equinix and Nutanix, Cisco, in that, in that design of our cloud. And so Equinix gives us the power, 200 plus data centers. So we can get, we can provide workloads, on demand practically anywhere in the world. Get them close to the end user to reduce latency. So a lot of, whether it's just providing data center services, colo, that type of thing, or today we're talking about DR as a service, but at the end of the day, we've got, it's a tier 4 data center, you know, and 6.9, or I guess 4.9 reliability and uptime. So yeah, I think that's
So we have a
then,
ton of Nutanix, don't we, Trevor?
yeah, just a few rows. So yeah, just and this just this is some pics from we got from the Atlanta AT4 Equinix data center. But yeah, it's we're we're all about, making sure that we're providing full enterprise class services, and whether it's DR or it's production infrastructure as a service, we we've got you. So and here's just a couple. XenTegra's been recognized quite a bit just recently. I mean, obviously, I think, we go back a few years. We, worldwide partner of the year. Big Microsoft partner, gold partner, direct CSP. 2003 Nutanix Cloud Champion. I think we're a big IGEL partner. So past year got the Partner of the Year award. And then what else we got on here? Just making the list. The top 5,000 and at the number 115 spot was pretty cool. And we've been on the CRN MSP 500 list for a number of years now. So we're getting the recognition. Essentially because I think we're doing a lot of the right things. I think we're doing it the right way, and and more than that, we got some really great people. So excited, and partnerships with like Nutanix and Equinix and.
So speaking of the right people, Trevor, I want to emphasize that, this is a webinar about disaster recovery as a service, but we do offer a full range of services for our customers.
Yeah, this is kind of an eye chart, but and we're going to have, this is like I mentioned earlier, this is a webinar, a series that we're doing around just XenTegra managed services. So we're going to be having upcoming once per month a new topic of that's comes out, one of these items on this this particular eye chart here. So obviously when it comes to EUC workspace, digital workspace, managed services support, we do a lot of that. So we range from, just providing us, being there from a support 24/7 SLA based support for these type of things, or all the way up to, hey, we'll host your Citrix VDI environment for you and manage it. So a lot of different services that are part of this offering, and I'm not going to go through all of them right here. We put a limited amount of time here, but one of the things that I will add too is that we have a service now. If you're a customer that is, I would say sub 1,000 is probably a pretty good number, and you're wanting to get into ServiceNow, but you just don't want to take the pay the piper and services that it requires to kind of maintain and drive it to get the full value. We provide a ServiceNow MSP service that provides you a multi-tenant ServiceNow instance that's fully maintained by us. You basically reduces the amount of services, by at least 75% of what you would have to do on your own. We out of the gate, we provide all the integrations that we use internally, that we build out internally for our CSM and ITSM within ServiceNow. We automatically, bring those over into your tenant. So you get a lot of free integrations by doing it with us. So that is a relatively new service that just came out this year. So we're pretty excited about that. And what else, Brian? What else should we call out here? I think we've talked a lot about DR as a service.
Just know that we can do all of this that we do for like hosts ourselves. We will happily do it for you in your data center or in the public cloud.
Yeah. So yeah, let me just that good point. So we obviously do hosted. We provide hosted Nutanix services. So whether that's we do dedicated cluster as a service, or shared cluster as a service. So, and that's so typically what that means is if you're a larger customer, it's typically a cluster as a service. It makes more sense in that scenario. For smaller customers that we were able to do it by the more public cloud, like per instance. So you have a shared what we call a shared cluster. But lot of great stuff there, leveraging the flexible platform that you can then turn, and we can provide that as a hybrid based in our data center to one of the major public clouds. So obviously Nutanix can run in Azure, AWS, and I don't think they don't have GPC just yet, but I think it's coming. So
okay, just stay tuned, right? We've got more of these coming in depth, and hopefully they get better and better and better. So thank you everyone for attending. Please ask us any questions that you would have. Happy to hang around here and just answer any of those. And I will keep the forum open here.
Brian, I had a question to start. I mean, what percentage of your customers would you say are bringing their own addresses into this workspace, or which of them are kind of re-IPing as they fail over?
All of them bring their addresses over. Nobody re-IPs.
That's fantastic. That answers a big question I have. That seems to be the thing most people want, is just to keep those addresses.
Yeah. So, and I'm really talking about server workloads. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's like DHCP for things like end user compute, VDA, Citrix servers, right? If it's DHCP and registers with Windows DNS, it's just it's DHCP on our side too. So, but it's DHCP within the VPC still. So, very, very easy to get new addresses.
I got a question. We got a question. So what's your opinion about how you handle the whole question about when to fail over, right? So what's the typical time frame, or situation where they say, okay, we are going to fail over to our secondary site? Is it after 10 minutes of power outage? Or I know there's not a complete one answer here, but what's your opinion?
So for unplanned outages, it's whenever the customer calls. So XenTegra staffs are knocked 24/7. Just call it and be like, hey, we're in Miami. There's a hurricane about to hit. We want to fail over to California. No problem, right? We'll prepare all the planning and execute that as a planned failover as we can. But let's say the hurricane hits and the data center in Miami goes down. We can recover from the last snapshot based on your RPO. And that, it takes literal seconds for those VMs to start powering online. Now, when the data center goes back online in Miami, there's going to have to be a little bit of cleanup. You're right, as the workloads will resync, and but Nutanix takes care of that from a very nice perspective. But to answer your question, holistically, Trevor, it really depends on the customer. Planned failovers are scheduled, at the beginning of the year 4 times for that year. But then unplanned failovers are almost always dictated by when the customer calls in and says, I want to push the button.
Right. And and then the failed back. How does the failed back work typically?
So that's a great phrase. Just so everyone's aware, Nutanix doesn't, when they say failover, they mean failover. So it's a failover one way, and then you fail over again, right? There's not a fail back kind of concept with Nutanix. So typically when we fail over a customer, we have a planned failover when we're doing the official test, we'll want them to run in our data center for a week. There's no point in having disaster recovery if it's not a good experience for the end user, right? If they can't get their work done, then your business isn't producing, and then it's not worth that to have for disaster recovery in the first place. So we want our customers to run for at least a week, make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing, that the workflows are truly unchanged and that the performance is unchanged. So a week is generally the rule of thumb.
Got it. All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so a couple other questions that come up. How does my stuff talk within the VPC, just like it does outside the VPC, just like it does in your own data center? There's no special sauce really within the VPC. It's Windows doesn't know that it's inside of a VPC, just like it doesn't really know that it's a virtual machine. I mean, yeah, there's drivers and stuff, but there's no drivers or anything like that for VPC. It's from a virtual machine perspective, it's talking to the network just like it always has. So there's nothing goofy going on or any special drivers or extra NICs. Just standard network talking. There's nothing special for it. And that's true with NetScalers. Even multi-arm devices, you can have multiple arms within the VPC. So no worries there. It's all regular stuff like you would normally expect from all kinds of weird networking devices that you would have. If you have an SSL concentrator or as a virtual machine, works just fine. And additionally, how do we translate all the firewall rules? That's part of our onboarding process, right? So if you are one of those lucky customers, wise customers that has east-west firewall in your network, as part of the onboarding, we just take all those IP addresses and rules and copy them over, right? Because that's what's so slick, is that the IPs don't change. So you don't have to have pre-existing rules or dynamic rules that change based on updated IP addresses for your workloads. So from a security perspective, it's literally just lift and shift. And we test all those rules during the failover test, right? Can this talk? Is this supposed to talk? And we do the audit and we provide those results, and you can provide those results to your cybersecurity team. It's happened, and that is truly like the best feeling in this stage of my life, when the customer asks you for the cybersecurity audit and you're like, here you go, and like in 10 seconds, like I've got it documented, here you go, here's the rules, right? Yep. So there's a lot of questions, good questions. Always feel free to circle back with Trevor or myself. Submit a query on the website. We're happy to help them. Jason, do you have any more input from the Nutanix side on learning more from the technology perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk a lot about the virtual networking and VPCs on our Nutanix University YouTube channel, but you can always get hands-on and try this technology out at Nutanix.com and click on the Take a Test Drive button. So we keep these virtual instances running so you can try out the different Nutanix product offerings.
Oh, do you want to tell them what's fun about those virtual instances that relates to what we're discussing today?
Yeah, so let's say you're taking a test drive to figure out how Prism and Calm or NCM self-service work on Nutanix. That instance itself is probably running on premises inside a Flow Virtual Networking VPC. So we're using the Nutanix technologies to demonstrate other Nutanix technologies with some nested virtualization.
So that's really how you know, like, they believe in the product, that they use it to give you that demo experience. That's huge.
I think we're the largest customer of our VPCs today, spinning up hundreds of instances per day and tearing them down.
Well, I plan to beat you there, so. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We are coming up on time. Big thank you to Jason Burns. It's a pleasure always to have you on these calls, and to share your wisdom with us and our customers. It's massive. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for the service you offer here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to drop us a line anytime.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.